There is a conversation happening in millions of American households right now. It sounds like this: we should really start saving more. I know, we will, once things settle down a bit. The car needs new tires, and we still have that credit card from the holidays. Yeah, maybe after the summer. That conversation has been happening in some of those households for 11 years. The people having it are not lazy. They are not financially illiterate. They are caught in something that behavioral economists have studied for decades: a specific, predictable pattern of financial self-sabotage that operates entirely below the level of conscious intent. Today, I want to talk about the psychology of financial avoidance, why people who want to get their finances together consistently, reliably, year after year, don't. And it is not the reason you think. Let me start with a story. Her name is Priya. She's 33, works in marketing in Seattle, makes $88,000 a year. By her own description, she is pretty good with money. She uses a budgeting app. She has a 401k through work. She reads personal finance content. She knows what an index fund is, and she hasn't looked at her actual bank statements in 4 months. Not because she's busy, not because she forgot, because every time she opens the app, she feels a wave of something she can only describe as dread. So she closes it and tells herself she'll look tomorrow. This pattern has a name in psychology. It's called financial avoidance. And research from the Financial Health Network found that approximately 58% of Americans regularly avoid engaging with their finances, not because of ignorance, but because of the emotional response that engagement triggers. 58%, more than half the country, actively avoiding the information that could help them. Here's what makes financial avoidance so dangerous. It doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like being busy. It feels like prioritizing. It feels like, I'll get to it when I have a real block of time. The avoidance disguises itself as reasonable behavior so effectively that most people don't recognize it as avoidance at all. They recognize it as their schedule. The psychology underneath is something called emotional pain avoidance. Your brain is extraordinarily good at protecting you from things that cause emotional discomfort. When looking at your bank balance triggers shame or anxiety or a sense of failure, your brain categorizes that activity as something to avoid. It doesn't experience it as information gathering. It experiences it the same way it would experience putting your hand on a hot stove: pull back, protect, avoid. And every time you successfully avoid it, every time you close the app and the dread goes away, your brain reinforces that behavior. The relief of avoidance feels like safety, and your brain is in the business of finding safety. The problem is that financial avoidance is not safe. It is one of the most expensive behaviors a person can have, because the accounts you're not looking at are still charging interest. The subscriptions you're not reviewing are still withdrawing. The investment allocations you're not optimizing are still sitting in the default fund your HR department set up in 2019. Financial avoidance is the illusion of safety that creates real danger. And here is the cruelest part. The longer you avoid, the worse the dread gets. Because the knowledge that you've been avoiding it adds to the shame. Now you're not just dealing with whatever the bank balance says. You're dealing with the bank balance plus 4 months of avoidance plus the guilt of knowing you should have looked sooner. The pile gets heavier the longer you leave it, and heavier piles are harder to approach. So you wait longer, and the pile gets heavier still. This is the avoidance spiral, and it is remarkably consistent across income levels. Priya, making $88,000, has the same avoidance pattern as her neighbor making $40,000. The accounts are different. The spiral is identical. But here's where this gets interesting. Because avoidance is not the only pattern. There is an equally powerful and equally destructive flip side. Some people don't avoid their finances. They obsess over them. They check their accounts multiple times a day. They refresh their investment portfolio when markets move. They lie awake running calculations in their head at 2 a.m. They feel a brief spike of control when they check. Then the anxiety returns and they check again. This is called financial hypervigilance. Meet Kevin. He's 41, a project manager in Chicago, making $112,000 a year. Kevin checks his investment portfolio before he gets out of bed in the morning. He checks it again at lunch. He checks it one more time before he falls asleep. On days when the market drops, he checks it every 20 minutes. Kevin's net worth is actually growing, but Kevin does not feel wealthy. Kevin feels like he is one bad quarter away from losing everything. The checking is not giving him information. The checking is giving him the temporary relief of feeling like he is paying attention. And the moment that relief fades, he checks again. And while it looks like the opposite of avoidance, it comes from exactly the same place. Both patterns are responses to financial anxiety. Avoidance says, I can't look at this. Hypervigilance says, I can't stop looking at this. Neither one is engagement. Neither one is the healthy relationship with money that actually builds wealth. The avoider doesn't act because they can't face the information. The hypervigilant person doesn't act because constant monitoring creates the illusion of control without requiring actual decision-making. Checking your portfolio 17 times does not change your portfolio. It just makes you feel like you did something. Both patterns ultimately serve the same function. They manage financial anxiety in the short term while doing nothing, and often making things worse in the long term. The third pattern is what I call magical thinking finance, and this one might be the most widespread of all. Magical thinking finance looks like this. The credit card balance is high, but a big project at work might come with a bonus. The savings account is empty, but tax season is coming and the refund will fix it. The retirement account is underfunded, but the housing market is going up, so equity will take care of it. None of these are plans. They are wishes dressed up as contingencies. The bonus might not come. The tax refund will come, and will be spent on whatever urgent expense has accumulated in the meantime. The housing equity is not liquid, is not accessible without taking on new debt, and cannot fund retirement the way an actual retirement account can. Magical thinking finance is the pattern of deferring financial action to a hypothetical future event that may or may not occur. And it is almost always delivered in the future tense. I will start saving when the car is paid off. I will deal with the credit card when I get the promotion. I will figure out retirement when the kids are out of the house. The future tense is the natural habitat of financial avoidance dressed as intention. Because in the future tense, everything is still possible. Nothing has failed yet. The plan still feels like a plan. Research from Bankrate found that 57% of Americans say they could not cover a $1,000 emergency expense with savings. But when asked about their financial future, the same people expressed confidence that things would work out. The confidence is real. The plan is not. And this is where the psychology becomes genuinely fascinating, because the magical thinking isn't denial. These people are not unaware that their savings are empty. They know. What they have constructed is a narrative that makes inaction feel rational. The future event, the bonus, the refund, the windfall, functions psychologically as a permission slip. Permission to not act today, because something is coming that will handle it. Except something is always coming, and it never quite handles it. Because when the refund arrives, the urgent expense arrives with it. When the bonus comes, the lifestyle has already expanded to absorb it. When the equity builds, the refinance uses it. The future event arrives, and the financial situation hasn't changed. Because the situation was never waiting for the event. The situation was being maintained by the narrative about the event. Now, here's the thing about all three of these patterns: avoidance, hypervigilance, and magical thinking. They are not personality flaws. They are coping mechanisms. They are the ways that reasonably intelligent, reasonably functional people manage the emotional weight of financial uncertainty. And they work. In the short term, they work perfectly. Avoidance makes the anxiety go away for today. Hypervigilance creates a sensation of control for today. Magical thinking removes the urgency for today. The cost is entirely paid in the future, which is, of course, when the cost feels least real. So what actually works? Not motivation, not discipline, not financial education. Priya already knows what an index fund is. What works is reducing the emotional load of financial engagement enough that the brain stops classifying it as a threat. Here is what that actually looks like. Back to Priya. She tried the traditional approach twice. She made a budget in a spreadsheet that she looked at exactly once. She downloaded a finance app that sent her 12 notifications before she turned them off. She watched 4 hours of personal finance YouTube in one weekend and felt motivated for about 3 days. None of it worked. Not because she lacked knowledge or willpower, because none of it addressed the actual problem. The actual problem was not information. The actual problem was that her brain had learned to associate financial review with dread. And no amount of information changes a learned emotional response. The first move is what researchers call temptation bundling, and it sounds almost too simple. The idea is that you pair the aversive activity with something genuinely enjoyable. You only listen to your favorite podcast when you're reviewing your finances. You only drink the expensive coffee you love on the day you do your monthly budget check. You create a ritual around financial engagement that your brain begins to associate with reward rather than dread. This sounds trivial. It is not. Multiple studies have found that temptation bundling significantly increases follow-through on tasks associated with negative affect. The brain learns that the finance review comes with the podcast, and slowly, over weeks and months, the dread response diminishes. The second move is radical simplification of the information environment. Priya doesn't need to see every transaction from 4 months ago all at once. She needs to see 3 numbers. Income this month, spending this month, the gap, that's it. Everything else is optimization that can happen later. The financial industry has a deep incentive to show you every metric, every chart, every comparison. More information creates the sensation of complexity. The sensation of complexity creates the feeling that you need professional help. The feeling that you need professional help creates customers. Your financial life does not require a dashboard of 47 metrics. It requires a clear view of 3 numbers and a consistent decision about what to do with the gap. The third move is what behavioral economists call commitment devices. A commitment device is a choice you make today that constrains your future self. The most powerful commitment device in personal finance is automatic investment on payday. Not because it's a new idea, because it removes the emotional decision from the equation entirely. Priya doesn't have to feel ready to invest. She doesn't have to overcome dread. She doesn't have to find the right moment. The money moves on the first of the month whether she's looked at the app or not. The commitment device doesn't require her emotional state to cooperate. It runs regardless. And this is the key insight that most financial advice misses. The goal is not to fix your relationship with money. The goal is to build a system that works whether your relationship with money is fixed or not. Priya's avoidance pattern might never fully go away. The brain's instinct to protect itself from emotional discomfort is not something that disappears because you understand it intellectually, but a system that moves money automatically, that keeps the information environment simple, that pairs financial review with something she actually enjoys. That system works around the avoidance. It doesn't need her to be fearless. It just needs her to set it up once. This is the real work of personal finance. Not the calculations, not the optimizations, not the spreadsheets and the 5-year projections. The real work is building a relationship with your financial life that is sustainable, not perfect, not anxiety-free, not even particularly engaged, just sustainable. The accounts you're not looking at are not going away. The subscriptions are still withdrawing. The interest is still compounding. But the solution is not to force yourself to feel differently about money. The solution is to build a system that operates independently of how you feel. Avoidance, hypervigilance, magical thinking. 3 patterns, 1 origin. The emotional weight of financial uncertainty in a system designed to maximize that uncertainty. You are not broken. Your patterns make perfect sense given what you're up against. The question is not how to feel better about money. The question is how to build something that works while you're still figuring that out. And the answer, as always, is architecture. Not feelings, architecture.